Wow, trigger warning, because these guys triggered me. But you know what, though? This is how things are going these days. Should start accepting this stuff as norm. So, April's Garage, don't know who they are. I've never seen them before. This one's the first time I come up on my scroll on YouTube. And here we are. April, the guy to her right is Hoovy, apparently. I don't know what these guys' credentials are. I know nothing about them, but I can look in the garage and see that is a very clean space. And it looks like a space where things are only stored for museum type purposes, show it off kind of purposes. Nothing special here. This is for a guy who has got a mechanic type background. This is the kind of thing that's like, hey, guess what? We see garage space. And it's like there's no tools in there. There's no hoist. There's nothing gets done in there. That's just a showcase showroom. The general impression I get from these two is they're kind of amateur journalists, maybe enthusiasts. But anything Tesla nowadays is like poke fun, ha ha ha, or praise, praise, praise. It seems to get the clicks and the views and stuff like that. So these people are pushing 78,000 views, 10 days. Pretty cool, but anyone doing better than me, great, more power to you. But it's kind of disgusting when people are just repeating some awful, awful things. And I'll get into it real quick here and let these guys kind of dig their own grave. And I'm probably going to push these guys to Ben Sullins too, because he does a much better job with data and research. And for me, I'm just coming from a technical aspect and background in the auto industry.
Welcome to April's Garage, and Tyler's feeling a little smug because we got some news about the Cybertruck that was pretty much expected. But take a look at this video he posted, what, 6 months ago?
The control arms, they do look very, very dinky, thin, small. I mean, this is it right here as far as the thickness. It is not thicker than my finger all the way across. And this is supposed to be an off-road vehicle. You see the big airbag there. That is not a very beefy upper control arm.
Stop right there. It's a double control arm setup. The upper one is non-load bearing. It is only there to control the top pivot point and keep it aligned. That's really it. It does not need to be very strong. Steel is stronger than you think, especially for its thickness. The lower one is cast aluminum, very heavy, very load bearing. That is what the one that takes all the brunt of the weight. You'll see even the ball, but the ball joints are much thicker down there as well. They move on here. So that to me tells me right away that they're not technically proficient in how vehicles are made, designed. And you keep saying things like design flaw, which I think is just a mistake. So here we go again.
So that's a bit of a problem right there.
I called it. I called it. Yes. I compared the upper control arm of the Cybertruck.
Right.
Very frail, very small, very chintzy, cheapy looking compared to my van that has a very, beefy upper control arm,
Sure, but why do you think Tesla did that? Why do you think the Cybertruck did
to
that?
save money.
Right.
And they hadn't built a truck before, so they didn't know. So now
They don't know, right? Okay, so they benchmarked the F-150, right? The top selling truck in the world, right? So they benchmarked it. There's engineering analysis at every single point, every single part of the vehicle. They know what they're doing. To act as if you go from a car to a truck or an SUV to a truck that you don't know what you're doing, you do the homework up front. And if you take on something like Ford and the F-150, you're taking on a big task. Yes, others have tried, others have come close. You can argue at points at GM and surpass them at times when you combine sales, but whatever. The truck market's tough. It is. In the United States, we have just a few options and we don't like a lot of competition. People are brand loyal, especially with trucks. Tesla is trying a different route and different variety. Hats off to them for trying. It's a divisive look. It's divisive of what it is, but I can tell you from a technical standpoint where they're going with it and why. People don't understand, usually try to mock what they don't understand and act as if, oh, it's not the status quo, so therefore it must be worse. When you first break everything down with first principles thinking like Elon Musk does and Tesla as a company does, you'll start to understand why things are different and going a different direction.
here we are 6 months later. I guess it's only happened once, and who knows what this guy was doing. Was he taking a jump? He wouldn't say what he was doing because insurance paid for this and he didn't want to get it canceled or whatever.
Okay.
Okay, right there. I've also seen tons of videos of Cybertrucks just getting lofted off dunes and ramps, and people beating the snot out of these things. Cybertruck owners are typically not converts from other truck owners. They are people that are relative fans of Tesla. They're stepping into the truck market for the first time. They have this impression of the vehicle being indestructible because of the materials it's made of and its construction. I've always said for a very long time, you can build the safest, most well-designed product out there. You put it in the hands of the customer, they're going to find a way to hurt themselves in it. Tesla fans are no exception. In fact, some of them might be a little bit worse. It's a lot of people with a lot of additional income, can live with a little more reckless lifestyle. They're going to go ahead and do that. Someone like me who's very budget conscious, I own something, I'm just going to take care of it. I'm not going to beat the snot out of it, just throw it away like it's disposable. Vehicles of me last, 10 years or more, and, hundreds of thousands of miles, all because I do my own maintenance, things like that. But I digress. Very different. I'm very different from what these people are, and I think that shows.
But he says it was a really bad pothole at speed, and take a look
Doubtful.
at the picture.
So this
That's what he
is
told
the
his insurance.
truck
Right.
that he damaged the control arm.
Right. So that is the upper control.
Pause right there. We're going to expand. That is cast aluminum. That does not look like the upper control arm. That looks like the lower. But this does look like a cast inside. The cast wheel well. Yeah, that's cast aluminum. It is not the same part he pointed at for sure. This could be flipped upside down. I don't know if this looks a bit like a rotor. It's hard to tell. It's a little grainy. But yeah, they're wrong. They're not pointing at the same part. So should not be smug over this. This guy's pointing at the wrong thing.
Arm, it is destroyed, annihilated,
Yeah.
and then that punched the strut and everything else through the frame of the truck. $32,000 at insurance.
What?
Yeah, insurance companies are out of control, especially with brand new vehicles that are completely new to the market. They've not been historically nice to Tesla. Tesla's reason for creating Tesla insurance is because of stuff like this. That's bad damage, yeah, no doubt. But that was not a pothole that caused that kind of damage. That is some serious destruction. You can go back and watch Sandy Munro's hitting the Giga castings with a sledgehammer and can't dent it. That is some serious damage, more than a pothole, for sure.
No, that's not something you can just weld back together. $32,000 is a lot
It
of
could
money.
not take a hit.
And you can weld that aluminum.
Diesel where
Yeah.
the trailer hitch, pulled the frame off and all
Right.
that stuff.
Which out of
Okay, that was another one that's taken out of context. Once again, if you watched the Whistling Diesel video, I can't stand that guy. They drop the back end of the truck, and you see it hit. The bumper hits the big concrete barriers that they were driving over. That's probably what cracked it. And then later on, he pulls a load, tried to pull the F-150 off that same barrier it could not make, and ends up breaking. So, yeah, the one probably weakness with castings is if you can crack them, then they're just infinitely weaker. Whistling Diesel is not. That is like durability for idiots. It is just the worst possible thing you can do all the time. But I mean, hey, you know what? People have more money than brains out there, and they'll do dumb things like that. But it makes for good entertainment and the internet. More power to them. But me personally, I would never treat a vehicle like that. And they're just regurgitating bad stuff that's out there that's been debunked. Even Ben Sullins, I think, debunked that one too.
his whole video, like he did so many crazy stuff, but that was the news.
Not a very beefy frame.
Right.
No. And then this one,
He's wrong. It's a massively beefy frame, but okay.
yes, he was doing something a little more crazy than he
Sure.
would probably, just driving on a dirt road and hitting a pothole.
Right.
Obviously, but to have that level of failure on a truck.
This is tricky because they're not old. They're still new trucks right now. And so for that to happen on something pretty much brand spanking new is a little
Yep.
interesting.
Yeah, but good for the owner. He's able to turn it into insurance. It was 22 pages of parts and then like replacing the frame. So this is like taking apart like a billion pieces the Cybertruck.
It's pretty well known that it's infinitely less parts. Like that front Giga casting is massive, and it replaces probably about 200 parts. Again, Monroe and Associates did a great video on this type of stuff. I don't know where this guy's getting his information from because it doesn't sound like he's really ever been hands-on. And you kind of look at him, it's like this guy's a little too clean cut. I bet you he's never had his hands dirty under the car, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And then putting it back together with a new frame, it took months and months, like
Clean, soft hands.
I think 4 months before he got his truck back. And yeah, how about that?
I mean, like, there's a learning curve with new things that come out all the time, and then we renovate them. Like, you know, when planes were first starting to fly, and we had to learn the hard way of what not to do and put fail-safes in, and I feel like that's what's happening
They've
with the
been making
Cybertruck.
upper control arms
I'm not going to go any further.
in cars.
I just feel bad
I guess-
for Tesla. I feel bad because there's so much bad press about the Cybertruck, and I think it's still kind of a cool.
The bad press usually comes from do have a split in YouTubers and influencers. Yeah, one half is actually Tesla fanboys. The other half is, if I can say something hateful, I can probably get a lot more clicks. This particular video seems to be no different. We're doing a lot of hateful things. We're just regurgitating a lot of FUD. There are anti-advertisers out there where they will basically pay for influencers, magazine type articles, and just only state the bad things. And they're called FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So it's like, we know we can't compete with this product. So the best thing to do is to put a campaign out there and just try to destroy its name. It's no different than politics. It's what all politicians do to each other. I mean, they sound like they just hate each other until the election's over. Then it's all back to shaking hands and going to lunch together, whatever it is. But yeah, this type of stuff just angers me.
Well, ever since independent front suspension, so like the Model A doesn't have an upper control arm. Like, I don't know, leaf springs, on either side. But
Right.
yeah, for 50, 60, 70 years, every car has had something like this. I guess there's plenty of torsion bar suspension and things
Yeah.
that's different.
Do
But
you think they would
yeah.
do a recall on control arms for every Cybertruck if this keeps happening?
they would have to. Obviously, it becomes a safety issue.
If it kept happening, yes. But you also have to understand this is a one-time issue.
Ford Raptor to take jumps to where the upper control arm never failed. It
Right.
ran
Yeah, but the Ford Raptor is taking jumps and all the airbags deploy, which can actually total a vehicle.
on a truck. You need to do that.
Of course. That's
Obviously, a
ludicrous.
car one.
Again, the Raptor's another example of a fringe truck that probably cost competitive to the Cybertruck.
Maybe you make it a little bit better.
Well, I just have a feeling we're not going to be seeing the Cybertruck. There's so many issues, so many problems. You can't drive it in Europe because it's not safe for pedestrians. Like, I don't see where the Cybertruck is going.
You'll see them at dealerships. That's where you'll see them because they are piling up inventory, like walking
Stock
around
footage
by
in
the
factory.
Tesla Cybertruck, which is so funny because whatever it was 9 months ago,
Right.
we were so cool going in and getting our name on the list after years and years of waiting and being able to pick it up and go, look at me, and flex for a couple of months.
Sure. It
And
was
now, I mean, just like the Toyota Prius when it came out, just like the PT Cruiser when it came out, just like many other mass-produced popular cars.
Those aren't even good cars.
And yeah, used Foundation series are in the 70s at this point.
fun. Right. Well, new Foundation series are sitting on the lots, and I
Right.
actually just read, I don't know how true it is, but read that they're shipping a bunch of them to Canada to offload, but taking the badging off of the Foundation series is an extra, what, $20,000?
Yeah.
Making
That's a good clip for Ben Sullins. Hopefully he'll tackle that. Hopefully I'll try to send him this one. See if I can do that.
Just that software, you just take it off, and then what else was there compared to the $80,000
Right. What
truck?
is the $20,000
like the special
Foundation
interior
series?
and
Well, a big chunk of that is definitely the full self-driving.
on there. So
Right.
are they like sanding down the stainless steel, and then like puffing it, like, okay, it's not a
They're just
Foundation
gonna
series
put
anymore.
a different brand on top of
Right,
it,
they're
or
putting a sticker, yeah, the Canada edition. No Canada edition for, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So now you'll be seeing them over there.
Wonderful.
Quite a lot, but also there's a new article circulating around where Tesla was lobbying in Europe for the government to put higher restrictions and prices on ICE cars, internal combustion cars.
So the opposite of like rebates
Right.
for electric cars
Right.
make the gas cars more.
Again, this is a good one for Ben Sullins, but lobbying for one thing or another, that's just what the automakers have been doing for since the early days. Tesla has now have enough clout that they can do that. on their own. Will they need to do that? I don't think so. Based on what I'm working with, I've long foreseen the increased cost and complexity, all the compromises that go into the internal combustion engine. It's just making it more and more difficult to produce at a cheap enough rate. Compared that to the falling prices of lithium batteries and the availability of it with new new things coming online, to new supply chain coming online to further lower the price of that. That's going up, where internal combustion engines is going down in terms of its cost and complexity, and building all the compromises for fuel efficiency, drivability, emissions, and power, trying to make all that work together. These have none of it. And they also get into the emission side of things too, which really drive me kind of crazy.
You can't go buy a Yugo for $5,000 anymore, because like it would, all the engineering for the safety. Well, I'm just saying, like a cheap Econobox has.
Safety also adds cost and complexity to these things. Yeah, they're just grabbing weird references, and it's like they kind of have a enthusiast knowledge, but not a lot of technical knowledge.
They're advertising the $0 a month lease on certain cars because
that's something for Ben to look into as well.
$7,500, $7,000 rebate, and then there's the federal one for $7,000, $7,500. So you can literally lease a brand new Fiat 500e for $0 a month. Zippo. Zip.
What?
All you have to pay is the tax on every month, with the payment, which is like.
It's also part of Stellantis, which is crumbling at the moment too. So good luck with that. I think they've pretty sure they've halted production on that vehicle too.
There's YouTubers that are literally doing it. They just have to live in Colorado. So like my sister lives in Colorado. She could lease me a 500e and have a free hoopty.
She's talking about getting a new car, actually. Something fun and cool. I don't know if that's fun and cool for her, but it'd be cheap and affordable. So it'd be great.
It's interesting. The thing that I want, though, the massive depreciation, though, is
the Cadillac Escalade. You already have one.
No. The Model S Plaid.
Oh, yes, of course.
2021,
yeah.
It was a $150,000 car selling for over MSRP.
Right.
And now they're like $50,000 off in 4 years. One's in good.
If that's true, it's a good deal. Buy them up.
You can have.
Put them in a little garage like this, you know.
On the planet. Like
I would be worried about how abused they are, because if they're selling them for that cheap, it's probably a car that's been done. They've done nothing but hole shots and drag racing its entire life. So that does have an effect on a lot of the. It is so hard in the powertrain the way they, as hard as that vehicle can launch. Might be a fun car just to go out there and showboat with, because that's what turned me from internal combustion engines to electric, was seeing Teslas just blow the doors off some of my favorite cars. Power is power, speed, doesn't matter where it comes from. It's more guilt-free with electric though. Plus it goes back to my roots as, building radio control cars and stuff. So
that's stuff to worry about.
Sure.
Over the batteries. The drive motors too can start to get noisy and things. So that's something to think about. The battery is the last thing that I think about. But $100,000 off in 4 years. Like all the idiots that paid $100.
He's making points about the batteries and the cost. I think she made a point about the battery and cost too. But has anyone looked into the cost of replacing a 10-speed transmission in modern vehicles? It's upwards of $8,000 to $10,000 to swap out the transmission, and the warranty isn't the same as the batteries are in the electric vehicles. So be careful out there. Be careful what you buy. The more moving parts, the more cost and complexity, the more opportunity things are going to screw up. As well as we can research and develop and test these things and get them out to market, there's still just more variables you're adding to wear and tear. And more likely things are going to break with more moving parts.
Lucid is a very sexy cars too.
A Rivian? You like the boxy?
Rivian's great, but that's such like the Rivian set a precedent where new companies and kind of like startup companies can get into the car space. Because it breaks my heart with like the Tucker back in the day, where they're trying to
love Tucker
and do something new and fun and cool, and they've kind of got shut out, or who knows the real story of how Tucker went under. But I really like.
We can guess a lot of that
because they've kind of bridged that gap of you can start a new EV startup.
They're starting to.
Yeah, but Rivian's dangerously close to going under. It's probably not for Amazon. They would be down by now. But yeah, Rivian makes a great product. In fact, they just can't make them profitable. I hope they get there quickly. They seem to be in the same path that Tesla was. They're just doing it slower. which if they don't speed up, it could be their demise. I hope not. I like them as a company. I like their vehicles. I like their products. Yeah, I hope they stay in there.
As they age,
Sure.
it's like a piece of software. It's like a computer that just it doesn't age very well.
Sure.
And the newest stuff, the latest software and everything, it advances so quickly that it makes sense that these cars seem obsolete and cheap just as quickly.
Right, which also kind of hands it out to the Bugatti that you
Right.
got, because there are no digital screens in there to make it look dated. I feel like that's a huge thing, obviously, with Corvettes, right? When you get in, you don't even need to see the exterior of the Corvette to know what decade it's from, because you just kind of look at that crystal liquid screen or whatever digital type screen, if it even has digital screen, and you can guess what year it's from, which is probably the same for EVs. You can see the tech and how big it updates every single year.
Yes. Well, Jacques is our camera editor.
Yes.
Jake, he has that BMW i3,
Right.
which is insane depreciation and all that stuff.
The roof on it is all getting degraded. Is that real
Oh, the
carbon,
carbon fiber, yeah.
That's real carbon fiber?
Are you just gonna?
Yeah, the whole body chassis and that thing's carbon fiber.
No, carbon fiber would fade and the
Sure it
color
does, yeah.
would kind of turn a
You
different
just
color.
re-cleared. It's not a big deal. I'm sorry, Jake. I'm sorry. No, it's a cool car. For
It's a
what it
very
is,
cool
yeah.
car. It's been kind of lived in and used, and it's still keeping up.
I mean, say something nice. You like.
And
You say one generic compliment, and then you talk about like, man, it's really a lot.
well, a
Piece of
man
crap.
that drives an i3, he doesn't need to show off because you know he's packing.
He got a BMW. He's driving a BMW. It's still.
You totally missed what I said.
Oh, judgmental on cars. They're driving an i3. That's basically the Prius of the BMW world. Oh my gosh. Anyway, they were talking about features in cars, and it's like at one point, I got one of the original smartphones here. They actually said that you can't have a phone without buttons, and this particular phone had full-on keyboard. So yeah, hold on there. Close that. This particular phone had a keyboard. After about the first couple weeks of me using it, I almost never used the keyboard, but I'd like to keep this around just for that. Motorola Droid 2, which was a good phone for its day. Still powered up until a few months ago. Yeah, this thing's probably over 10 years old now. But that was the thought at the time, that phones had to have buttons and keys, and people are still thinking that with the automotive world, that we have to have all these buttons and knobs and everything. But in fact, you get in most vehicles nowadays. BMW is a good example of how confusing it can actually be. They're not great with their software. There's a very different way of thinking from Europe than there is from here in the U.S., which probably makes us better for graphical interfaces than them. They may be as good, if not better, in the background stuff. But when it comes to the end user, United States has always had this customer's always right kind of mentality. That's debatable too, but our graphical interfaces have been better, and Apple is the one that led that, right? And Microsoft and Google and everybody else followed after that. But the end result is we make phones so simple, software so simple that children can pick it up and use it, and it's very intuitive. Try doing that with something from Europe. I work with some European-based software in the auto industry testing, and oh my gosh, I've got nothing but complaints about it. But me being the end user and not being the programmer, that's just different levels of security that they allow certain technicians. Anyway, that's all I have for here. I'm going to try to forward this on to Ben Sullins. Hopefully he can do something more with it. But yeah, I'm all about free speech and your ability to say what you want. But when you say something dumb, it should be challenged. And the best fight against that is definitely not shutting them down. The best fight against that is actually getting out and open and talking more about it. And that's what I love to do. I love to talk about things like that. I want to be part of the bigger picture and some of this stuff. I've got a lot of experience in my background. So yeah, here we go. Hope you enjoyed.